Hello and welcome to North Kilworth Marina in Leicestershire. It's the marina where I sold my boat, and it's the place where that boat has since had a massive upgrade, which this video is about. Amusingly, the new owner didn't intend to buy it at all.
Came down here to look at a boat that got an engine in an engine room, which I liked, but I didn't like the boat. It had been done by somebody to meet their tastes, and it just wasn't right for me. As I got off the boat, I saw another boat and thought, that looks familiar, why do I know it? So I rang my son, and he says, what's the name of it? I said, Rayland. Oh, that's David John's boat. You've been watching it on Cruising the Cut. So I asked if I could have a look at it. Within 25 minutes, I'd agreed to buy it.
Unsurprisingly, David has put his own touches on the boat, including this illuminated polar bear, and a completely new and undamaged chimney with a rather elegant cowl. However, much of the boat is the same, such as my old solar panels, although that was to change, as was pretty much everything under here, the pile of old engine room deck boards being a clue as to what was planned. There's the trusty Lister Petter diesel engine that saw me take the boat on various adventures. Take note of how the engine bay looks now, because by the end of this video, it's going to be very different. And, after all my efforts putting this solar system in, prepare to see a bit of a change here too. And wave bye-bye to those batteries. So, what's the plan? Let's ask an expert.
The current owner of Rayland approached me with a view to changing his boat from diesel to electric. So we sat down and over a period of a few months come up with a plan. He's sort of disabled slightly with his knees, so he needs to be able to get into the engine bay, get to the weed hatch, and everything needs to be simple for him to do it solo-handed or single-handed. So hence the process of going to electric. There's no maintenance for the engine, and he just wants it all just to be nice and smooth, and he can get in, anything he needs to do, he can do, and he hasn't got to bend down on his knees.
The conversion took a few weeks because of the adaptations David needed. There was a degree of welding and reworking. It wasn't as simple as just swapping out the engine. So there are 3 sections to this video corresponding with my visits. Day 1 was the removal of the diesel engine and my solar panels. This was quite painful to watch, I must admit. Down in the engine bay, the first step was to disconnect all the pipes, like the fuel, coolant and air intake. That's the control box for the engine being unscrewed. Up on top, my security system for the solar proved somewhat easy to break. Ah well, maybe it deterred the casual thief anyway.
Got a posse on you?
I'll have a crosshead on then.
Meanwhile, the air filter came off. The solar was going to a new home, so it was carefully removed. Next, the electrical connections to the engine came off. Followed by the control lines to the back of the gearbox. After all the time I spent putting this beast on the front, but it had to go too. A completely new solar system was going to take its place. Expert Gary came to check on progress. You may recall him from my very earliest days with the boat, and of course his cookery skills making Christmas dinner for me and friends. I'll leave a link to that video in the description.
To you, to me, to you. Absolutely, right.
With the solar, David, we've got 5 panels going on, and we stumbled across a bit of a problem with this hatch. So the only way we can get round it is we're going to put some stays on the hatch so that when it opens it doesn't fall back on to the solar panel and cause damage there. And then he'll just pop the clips inside and then it will just come down on some gas struts so that it's nice and safe for him.
It's looking a little bare. You can't take an engine out without disconnecting it from the prop shaft, so that happened next. There we go, the prop shaft's been pushed back by a few inches out of the way. Sorry about the wobbling, the boat was moving. Say adios to the engine, this is the last time it'll be in here. A winch was prepared for lifting the block. And in the corner of the boatyard, a telehandler was brought into play. An extension thingy was put on the front, from which the engine would hang.
We've got some lift bolts in there.
This bit reminds me of Hellraiser. I never did like that film. With the engine securely attached, the requisite health and safety gear was brought on, including radio comms between the chap in the boat and the bloke on the machinery. The slack was taken up, and in a short time the engine was dangling free. This might be a good time to find out where that damned oil leak was coming from. I'm told the engine had a new home ready for it as well, so it too was placed safely down for later. The mess would be cleaned up, the wires and batteries removed, and the entire engine bay cleaned, painted, and even the metalwork altered. I would return when this was done. It is now some weeks later and there has been a huge transformation on the boat. After taking the engine out, the team here have done a load of re-welding and reworking. They're basically reshaping the entire engine bay, not just so they can put the new electric motor and battery box in, but also reworking it to make access easier for the new owner as well. I will show you what they've done. The bedroom doorway's been extended and the engine bay lowered in part so that David can step straight out. Plus there's steps up to the back deck. It all makes access much easier for a man with a dodgy knee that he can't kneel on. Note also the stern greaser is now in here too. Under the deck boards is the star of the show, the electric motor. But it's what's either side of the prop shaft that's particularly ingenious here. 2 powered lifts that you can stand on. But why?
I went out on a few trips, and every time I went out I had this worry of getting in the weed hatch. Engine, I get somebody to do. Most things, you know, the oil changes, things like that, you get done. I don't need to do them myself. But when you're out on the cut and you have a problem with your weed hatch, you've got to be able to get in it. And every time I tried, I failed. So I had to start rethinking.
David's dodgy knee was the incentive for this whole project. He didn't need electrification as such, but he needed space for the lifts, which only a smaller electric motor could give.
I stand on the lift and it lowers me down into the engine bay, and I'm at waist level with the weed hatch. I can open the weed hatch and put my hand straight in.
The diesel engine and all its ancillary bits just took up too much space. This compact motor meant the engine bay became adaptable to give David enough space to work in it without bending his knees. Expert Gary gave me the status quo.
From taking that dirty, smelly diesel engine out, we've now gone in and prepped the engine bay, took it back to bare bright steel. We've put numerous coats of paint on it. We've done the metal work for the steps that lead David out from the inside of his boat. Much metal work cutting out, etc, etc. And we're now got to the point where we've put all the engine bearers in, ready to take the motor and the battery box. We've changed the prop shaft and various other components, and we're now at the point where the motor is now in place and is being commissioned today.
This box houses the electronics that control the motor. Tucked in alongside it are water pipes from the existing skin tank which cool the motor. And the assembly is mounted on a plate welded to the old engine bearers. Take the forward deck board off and you reveal the battery box, in which are stored 5 kilowatt-hour lithium batteries of the very safe LiFePO4 chemistry, which is extremely stable and fine for use in boats. The batteries talk to each other over a networking cable and are interconnected into one big battery pack running at 48 volts. There are 2 cut-off switches, one for the entire electrics and one just to isolate the motor. None of this comes cheap.
It is quite a costly venture to go into, and you need to be committed, and that's 100% what you want to do, and going completely electric rather than having the backup of an engine. You've got to make sure that everything has the right capacity so he can cruise, and he hasn't got to plug into the shoreline to charge. And that's where the science and that's where all the detail really comes in, and that's where we've got involved. And then we need to deliver him something that he's comfortable with using most of the year round.
The old large Morse control lever is replaced by this, with the screen under showing the battery state of charge and consumption. Where my solar controllers sat is now a shiny new cupboard with all new electronics hidden behind it. A combined solar charger and 5 kilowatt inverter, plus various DC to DC converters. Oh, and look, there's my old galvanic isolator. And my old timer for the electric water heater. The black box is the header tank for the diesel heater, which is down below. Another new cupboard rather sensibly houses the mooring pins and chains, keeping them neat and tidy. And my very ancient canal map has been replaced by one from Joe and Michael of Minimal List. Much better. Finally, the boats had a fresh coat of blacking. It is now several weeks later, all the work is completed, and I've come back to see the boat actually moving with its new engine. There it is, all shiny and raring to go. 5 new 360 watt solar panels give up to 1.8 kilowatts of generation. The swan neck's been repainted at the back, and at the base, brand new bearings should make for a smoother turn rather than the rattly juddering I used to put up with. Let's start up. That's it. No noise, it's just on. David attached the tiller arm, holding it in place with a polar bear tiller pin. He's rather fond of polar bears. The lines were undone, and with a roar of that new motor, he was off. Okay, maybe not a roar. I love electric boating on the canals. You want peace and quiet? Go electric. There's plenty of push when needed. He hadn't had a chance to use it much when I filmed, but enough to know he likes it a lot.
It's more precise, more instantaneous. There's no lag between moving it a little bit and the change in speed. It happens almost instantaneously. And you can move at a very, very slow pace and still have steering. And reversing is totally different kettle of fish to what it was on the diesel engine. You can actually steer where you're going.
After pausing to pick me up, we headed towards the marina entrance. Once you're aboard, above the engine bay, there is just the slightest whir coming from the motor. I've been on several electric narrowboats now, and whilst none of them are noisy, this is certainly a very quiet unit. The power drawn by the motor, of course, varies according to how much throttle you apply, so when cornering, such as exiting a marina, there will be a higher current consumption. Even so, 2 kilowatts isn't bad, and a steady cruise should draw about 1 to 2 kilowatts. It was a decent day for narrowboating. David kindly let me take the tiller for one final time. How strange to be driving my own boat again. And with electric power. Oh, Boaty! I've missed you, Boaty. Now that's draining 1.5 kilowatts to do about, probably 1.5 miles an hour, I reckon. So I'll nose it up a fraction. And we'll probably do a gentle 2 miles an hour, if that, especially as we're coming up to some moored boats and a blind bend. This was just a short cruise up to the entrance of the Welford Arm, where we'd turn and go back, long enough to test the boat and see how it handled with electric power. I suspect that with a bit of acoustic panelling in the engine bay under those new deck boards, that small amount of motor noise would become inaudible, and then all you'd hear would be the sploshing from the propeller. The CRT were cutting back the vegetation, which is always good to see. The really odd thing about electric is the total silence when you move the control to what would be neutral on a traditional gearbox. David reckons narrowboating has changed his life.
I'm a much calmer, friendlier person. Apparently, from what other people have said. I've got more time for people. I listen to what they've got to say rather than just brush off what they're saying.
We moored, and I bid my old boat farewell. Give David a wave if you see him on your travels, eh? Cheerio.